Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Every Day is Saturday. I'm Matt Stahl, along with my partner, Brad Gatto.
Hello, Matthew Stahl.
Oh, hello. Howdy.
Try to keep you on your toes.
Yes, I love it. Today, we are going to be talking about the future of wealth management.
We shouldn't talk about the future ever. Are we prognosticating?
No. This is more focused on the tools and the technology.
Okay, just making sure compliance isn't going to make us like throw a disclaimer in here that we're not trying to
this is
predict
what the market's going to do in 2024. Before we jump into that, what's new?
My oldest just turned 14.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So that was, I don't know. I still don't feel like I should have a 14-year-old.
Tell me about it.
When I was in high school, I felt like my parents were so old.
Oh, yeah.
Even though my parents were younger than all my friends' parents. But I don't know. But that was, so it was good. I took him ice fishing, which I don't like to do. I live in Minnesota and I don't enjoy the Minnesota winter activities. I don't play hockey. Ice fishing to me has got to be one of the most boggling. We were out there for 8 hours.
Wow.
And it took everything I had to not constantly just think about the fact that the only thing between me and certain death is 12 inches of ice. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting in an ice house, which weighs a lot, and we're heating it.
And the ice is not thick.
12 inches is what it was. I don't know, relatively speaking. Obviously, this has been a weird year in Minnesota, so I know 12 is probably a lot less than it normally is. But I also have no sense of well, how much should it be? Or how thick does it need to be before you go out there? But there's people driving their cars around.
Wow. That seems kind of
all over the ice.
That seems a bit aggressive.
And because there's no snow, you can see the ice. It'd be one thing if there was snow covering it, so it didn't feel quite like you're driving on top of a lake, but it literally just looks like a lake.
That's kind of creepy.
For me, it is.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people out there that love to do it, but
was that his choice?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The last time I went ice fishing was for his 13th birthday.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, I thought that was the case.
That tells you how much I like ice fishing. But my father-in-law and my brother-in-law love it, and they're the ones that got him into it. And so I will, from time to time, obviously once a year, I'll go out there with him. How about you?
I feel like I've finally been home. We took our annual trip to Florida at the end of the year last year, and then I went to Utah with you and the crew here. And
yeah.
So I feel like I'm finally settling into home. And
I can understand that because I don't relate because end of the year is all Christmas. Mm-hmm. We go to Utah, came back, went to Florida for another work event, just got home Sunday, and I will leave tomorrow for Florida again.
Oh boy.
For another work thing.
Oh boy.
So
not bad.
A lot of time on a plane. It's my old life. I used to be on a plane 35 weeks a year.
You're back.
I am back. The rules are all different now, though, in flying. With Delta, anyway. Anyway, we don't need to get on that. This is about the future. This is not the future of Sky Miles for Delta. That is not what this episode is. Although I could fill 2 hours of content if that were the case.
You could. He knows all the status, all the hacks.
There's a whole. The other episode that we could get from that is how unreasonable I am about that.
Yes.
The intrinsic value versus my perceived value of that thing.
I agree.
Is Delta has me in a box.
In a box.
But we're going to talk about the future of financial planning as it relates to technology, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we start with some of this applies directly to your experience here.
Yep.
And feeling some of these tools and it's like the buzzword these days, but AI.
Yeah, well, I think here's why people should care. Why should you even tune into this episode? Why should you care about the future of our industry? Because at the end of the day, our industry is serving you.
Right.
The whole point of our industry is to serve you and your family and all things financial. Now, that could be the obvious things like investing your money, but just planning in general around your life, whatever that looks like. And tech affects every area of our life.
Yep.
Right? And so it is no different, and it's not like we're secluded or isolated away from that. And so it is important for us to understand in this industry, and me as the owner of the firm, okay, how do I stay on top of this, and how can we use it? Because now I'm going to sound like an old crotchety dad here, but tech can be good, but can also be really bad.
Right.
Right. It's one of the hardest things raising kids these days is the amount
absolutely
of tech that is out there to keep them entertained. But there's definitely positives to it. And so how do we take advantage of it? How do we stay on top of it? And so it's worth noting as a listener, if you're a client of our firm or a prospect or just somebody out there that is interested in personal finance, how tech can affect you. So we've got kind of 3 things I think we're going to go over today, right?
Yeah. So I'd say artificial intelligence is one of those. We've seen that play out already to some degree. The second is some of the investment strategy. So
how tech has affected investment strategy.
Yeah, the strategy itself. And then also just the access to information. And so we've talked often in the past.
Basically the broad internet, kind of, we live in a connected world.
Unlimited amounts of access to information in front of us all the time.
Perfect.
So let's start with artificial intelligence. So why don't you share, there's some tools that are already put in place here at Fiat that do pull in artificial intelligence. How about you talk about that a little bit?
I'm just curious of all the listeners. I'm sure everybody's at least heard of AI. It's kind of barnstormed the headlines here over the last, I don't know what,
Barnstorm.
2 years?
I like that.
That they catch you off guard there?
No, I just like it.
Okay.
Iowa Barnstormers.
The Iowa Barnstormers. Love it. Nobody listening to this podcast is going to have any idea what that is other than you and me. Well, my dad might, if my dad listens. Yeah, Kurt Warner. That's a good reference point. Fair. So artificial intelligence, and it was ChatGPT, I think, that kind of broke the barrier for most people understanding artificial intelligence and this idea that there's a machine out there that you can essentially just talk to. Mm-hmm. And so if you're a listener that's never interacted with ChatGPT, I would encourage you to go do it. It is very interesting having a conversation with a computer. Because when you interact with Google, as an example, and you go into a Google search bar, you can basically ask Google anything and it will find an answer for you. But what you can't do is ask a question based on the previous question, be like, oh, okay, thanks for that information, Google. What about this? And then literally just kind of have this where it encompasses that whole conversation to give you an answer back.
Yeah.
It is weird.
It's an interaction.
How much have you messed around with it?
Quite a bit.
Quite a bit?
Yeah. And I've used it to write copy. Yep. And, you can plug something in and you can say, make it better. And it'll come back and it'll say, make it better. It'll come back. It's fascinating.
It is fascinating.
It's scary at the same time too.
I've plugged stuff in there and said, answer this question, and then said, like, answer this question as if you're talking to a 6-year-old.
Yep.
And then answer this question as if you're talking to a PhD in astrophysics or something like that. It is crazy.
Yeah.
What it can do. And there's obviously positives can come from that.
People have jobs that are prompters now.
Yeah, it's an engineer.
Crazy? Yeah.
There's prompting engineers. Like, it's a whole knowing how to appropriately prompt ChatGPT to get out of it what you want out of it.
Yeah.
Because you've run into people that like can't find stuff on the internet, and you're just like, it's because you're typing the right stuff into Google. It's kind of like that, but just even bigger.
Yeah.
So anyway, AI exists. So how is it affecting the financial world? Well, here at Fiat, as an example, we have 2 pieces of technology that use AI.
Yep.
And so whether our clients know it or not, we're using AI basically every day.
Yeah.
One of them has been around, is more recent. We picked up last year. It's a very useful tool, which I'll get to in a second. But the other one we've been using for probably 4 years.
At least 3. I'd say close to 4.
It's basically a tax software that uses AI, where it helps us read tax documents, and then pulls information out of those documents, pulls opportunities for that family out of those documents. And it's been a very useful tool. In fact, I do a lot of coaching and mentoring of other advisors in this industry, and I've been quoted as basically saying, if you're not using this, you're missing the mark. Because obviously every time you make an investment decision, there's also a tax impact to that. And being able to understand the tax impacts to that is a really big deal. So here at Fiat, when we're doing tax planning for the clients that we serve, there is an AI component to what we're doing behind the scenes.
Yep.
The second piece to that is very, very similar. It's just not tax oriented. It's estate planning oriented, where we have the ability to use AI to help either one, read through existing estate documents and try to help make sense of them. Because I don't know, maybe 1% of the people that I've interacted with that have something like a will or a trust actually understand what their will or trust is,
right,
or what it does, or how it's going to work, or like when they die, could give you a really quick explanation of, yeah, this is what's going to happen. This is what my trust says, and this is how it works. And so it can help read existing documents, but it can also, because of just technology in general, computers in general, but with the help of AI, draft wills, trusts, powers of attorney, healthcare directives, and things of that nature. So being a comprehensive financial planning firm, been super important for us to have AI specifically, but just tech in general as a part of what we're doing.
Yeah. So that's the AI piece, artificial intelligence. Second piece is more related to the investment strategy itself.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let you talk about that because you're more versed in that than I am.
Well, and I hope we got this right, because we didn't fact check ourselves. But I'm actually going to throw the ball back to you. We were talking about this and about where we're at today and what computers can do for us as it relates to investing, and then kind of chuckling a little bit about how it used to be. And the reference point you gave was Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger.
Yeah. So Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger. Well, and Benjamin Graham, Warren Buffett's mentor, I don't know who actually coined the phrase, but there was this term they would call them cigarette butts. And so Benjamin Graham, then Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger would go to the library and they'd sift through books and books and books to find opportunities. And what they're trying to find
investing opportunities.
So they're trying to find companies that were a good deal. And they would refer to them as cigarette butts.
They'd use the Dewey Decimal System.
They did. They did.
Isn't it funny that we had to learn that?
Isn't it funny that we're laughing about that right now?
And then you think that just how far we've come, like how asinine it is that there was drawers full of little pieces of paper.
It's crazy.
And you had to code, because without that, how in the world would you ever find a book in a huge library? So it used to be that when Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett were kind of starting out in their investing lives 80 years ago, this is what they had to do. Mm-hmm. Now, everything's on the computer. Everything is at your fingertips through Google or any other resource that you're using through the internet. For us here at Fiat, one very practical thing that's been super beneficial to us is the ability to use tech when it comes to managing portfolios. Mm-hmm. So let me just give one practical example. We do a lot of something called direct indexing here. Direct indexing would not be possible without the help of tech and computers and algorithms. So it's just a fancy way to say that we have the ability to mimic an index. So take the S&P 500. Yep. Everybody knows, or at least heard of the S&P 500. It's the largest 500 companies in America. Technically, it's 506 companies. But what they've done is created an index so you can just buy the index. So you don't have to physically go out and buy all of the companies in the index. That would be a lot of work. Mm-hmm. And then managing, because it's not always the same 500 companies. There's companies that get kicked out of the index. They add new companies into the index. And so if you're just trying to say, I want S&P returns, and there wasn't an index to go mimic it, it'd be a ton of labor for you to manage your money in a way to get that done. Now, that's the positive to the index. The negative to the index is you don't own all 500 companies directly. You own the index itself. And so if you look at the index and you go, well, there's a couple of companies in there that didn't do so hot, and I would really like to be able to just sell off those ones for whatever reason. It could be for investment purposes. It could be for tax purposes. But you can't do that because you don't own them directly. You own them through the index. Mm-hmm. So that's the negative side to it. Well, how do you get the positive without the negative? How do you get the positive of owning the S&P without the negative of having to package it all together and not have all the labor that goes along with it? Well, we do have the labor. It's just we use computers to take advantage, like to do all the labor that would take an advisor like myself sitting there watching the market every single day and watching those 500 companies and trying to manage it. I wouldn't be able to do that for more than maybe a handful of clients.
Right.
Now we have computers that watch it. Not only do they watch it, Matt, they try to take advantage of opportunities. Not when it comes to trying to beat the index necessarily. We're not trying to beat the S&P. We're trying to be it, but take advantage of little blips in the market, because we all know the market moves every day, to offset taxes. Mm-hmm. And so now, because of technology, I can mimic an index, yet own it all directly, and have all the advantages of owning a stock directly versus on a packaged level and being a part of an index. So it's kind of a nerdy example, but at the end of the day, it's something that's like the example of direct indexing has been around for a very long time. The concept of it has been around for a very long time. It hasn't been accessible to the average lay investor because of the amount of labor that it's taken. But now, thanks to computers, that labor has gone away, and we can bring something really sophisticated on the investing world like that down to the average lay investor. So tech in that way has been very beneficial.
Yeah, that was a great description of direct indexing.
Well, thank you.
It should be a YouTube short.
I'll work on it.
The third piece of this is somewhat related to what we were just talking about, but it is the amount of information. Think back to Warren Buffett sitting in a library and all that labor to go sift through all the books. And we think about today, we have information at our fingertips everywhere we turn.
Yeah.
And there's very few instances where we're getting to run into a scenario where someone has access to information that the rest of us do not have.
Mm-hmm.
There's some positives to that, but there also can be drawbacks to that as well. So there's no lack of information. We've said this a lot. There's information around us everywhere. No lack of information. There is a lack of wisdom. And number one, knowing what information is actually correct, because you can come up with any theory you want and find proof of that on the internet. And then number two is the application of it. So wisdom is actually knowing how to take this information and then apply it to us individually and our plan.
Yeah, it used to be that the information that you had was from your life experiences.
Right.
Which obviously takes a lot longer. And there's a lot of anecdotal evidence that goes along with that information as you gained it. And so now you can just Google anything you want.
Yep.
In fact, as you were talking, all I was thinking about was this morning, between the time of, so my routine in the morning is I've convinced my boys, they're now 14 and 10, to work out with me.
Oh, nice.
So they work out with me in the mornings. They've been going at it for a couple of months. They still get up. Yes, I was testing them this morning, actually. I didn't remind them that today was a workout day. And they both got up. So we were out there this morning. We come in 6:30. I jump in the shower, and then I try to make sure that I'm out and ready to be available, before 7 o'clock, because they get on the bus at 7:12 roughly. And I want to be around to just kind of like hang out with them before school. So we're doing that. In that 15 minutes that I came out of the bathroom, like ready for work before they get on the bus, I Googled 3 things that just came up in conversation. The first one was weather and like what's going on. And I was like, oh yeah, I just pulled my phone out of my pocket and off we go. The next thing was somebody said something. I can't even remember what I even ordered now. I went to Amazon and ordered something because they're like, oh yeah, we need this. I'm like, oh yeah, I got it. And I just pulled my phone out and I ordered it immediately. And then another one was a question about the football games this weekend. And I couldn't remember. And I pulled my phone out and immediately had access to that information.
Yep.
So real life example this morning. Why is that a bad thing, or how can that be a bad thing? Because information is so accessible, knowing what to do with that information or quantify that information or know what information is real versus not real, understanding the sources that it came from. Take even our industry, financial advising industry. We're not the only advisors out there putting out educational content the way that we're putting it out. There's a lot of them.
Right.
How do you know you can trust that information? How do you know that what they're telling you is, one, true, if it's a factual style statement, or that it's not clouded in or shrouded in bias or opinion or whatever it may be? So it can be detrimental. And so we have to develop better filters for ourselves when it comes to information. And then, to use your language, which I love, is knowing or learning, I guess is a better way to put it, how to have the wisdom of what to do with that information, when to use it, when to not use it, what's good information, what's bad information, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I think those are the three top things. We could go down all sorts of different paths around. There's likely going to be a lot of development around the security side of things, authenticating an individual.
As there should be.
And so that would be definitely positive progress in that area. And all sorts of other having to do with trades and the speed at which that happens. I don't think we're quite there yet. And I don't think it's going to be affecting the general public and most of us today. So.
Yeah. I do think, just as we wrap up here, call to action, so to speak, to people is technology has the opportunity in all facets of life to be your friend and to be helpful to you. And of course, it has the ability to be the opposite. when it comes to financial services, there is a massive opportunity because of the world of tech to get better service.
Yep. Yeah.
To get better portfolios. I mean, and I'm not saying better as in far as rate of return. I don't know what the market's going to do, but better as far as efficiency, the amount of fees it takes to run the thing, the amount of efficiency relative to trading, the amount of efficiency relative to taxes. So whatever that means to you, again, I want to be very clear for compliance purposes. I am not saying better rates of return necessarily. I'm just saying efficiency.
Right.
So has really cool opportunities for the average person in that area. And then what we talked about at the very beginning, the fact that AI has helped us so much here at Fiat with tax planning and estate planning and some of these other key areas is just really cool. So just make sure that in those areas you get to take advantage of that. So if you're not a client of Fiat and you've got an advisor, I would talk to them about these types of things and say, hey, do you have access to some of these tools and these new features and new strategies that are out there that technology has blessed us with in the financial services industry? Because frankly, I mean, at this point, Matt, of our value proposition to our clients, tech has a lot to do with it.
It does. Yep.
And we're, change is hard for a lot of people. We're just trying to stay on top of it and sift through the tech that is helpful and then bring it into the fold to benefit the families that we work with.
Well said.
Lovely. Well, thanks for joining us for this episode of Every Day is Saturday. Again, my name is Brad Gatto. This is my co-host, Matt Stahl. If you're new to the podcast, please click like, subscribe, do it. If you're old and you still haven't done that, old to the podcast, that is, then what are you waiting for? That way you're notified every time we have new episodes come out. Feel free to tell your family and friends about it. And if you have any great ideas of podcast episodes, we would always love to know what it is you would like to hear.
Yes.
You can reach us at our website. All of our contact information is there. It's fiatwm.com, FIATWM.com. It sounds like a cheerleader. Nailed it.
FIAT.
There it is, WM.com. We'll see you all next Saturday.
Thank you for listening to Every Day is Saturday. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Fiat Wealth Management. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.